All right, welcome to another episode of Brooks on Business. Today, I have Bryson Powers with me, and we will be discussing something different. Instead of interviewing a top entrepreneur in the marketplace, we're actually going to be talking about what our specific skill set is, which is we're real estate agents who handle real estate transactions here in Northeast Florida, and new market statistics have come out just yesterday, and we wanted to share with you our thoughts, our opinions, and our experience in this absolutely insane and fast-changing market here in Northeast Florida. So, Bryson, without further ado, you saw the report yesterday. What did you think?
Not super surprising. There's a few statistics in here that kind of made me nod my head and kind of think about it. But no, a lot of this isn't crazy to me. I mean, you see these huge increases in median sales price year over year. You see the rapid change in inventory has just completely shrunk. But I think stuff like, the change in closed sales really does deserve a little bit of explanation. But overall, not a ton surprised me. If you're familiar with the market like ourselves, where we look at the market, I look at it at least 2 hours a day, right? Where I am on the computer. I check out the market, what's happening, what kind of homes are hitting the market, what kind of condition they're in. So this wasn't a huge surprise to me, but there are definitely some statistics that stand out.
Yeah. So one of the things we saw was that closed sales dropped 13%, which is like the first drop that we have experienced in a very, very long time. Why do you think that is?
So I have a few thoughts about it. One would be appraisals would probably be the first thing that sticks out to me. We've always had issues with appraisals, but when you're seeing a median sales price increase of almost 20%, it's hard for appraisers to kind of keep up with the times, especially if they're using 6 months of data, right? So what a home sold for 6 months ago is completely different than what it's selling for now. And I know that's probably going to scupper a lot of deals. Then you're coming into the territory of it's a strong seller's market. You should come up and take, money out of your pocket. And then there's a lot of buyers who are already at their wits' end. They're already maxing out their budget because we are at a 20% increase in sales price. And they're like, we don't have any cash available. We still got to worry about any sort of repairs that you're already, a lot of people are taking homes as is. A lot of people are just waiving everything possible just to make a deal happen because they want a home. And I think that is probably the reason that we see a lot of homes go under contract, but a lot of them are falling out of contract because of these contingencies. So that would be my first initial reaction to it. But there's a lot of holdups. I think a lot of people are sacrificing a lot. Like I said, as is definitely a stumbling block for people. They might get that inspection report back and say, wow, this is way more than I bargained for. I'm out. And, it takes for me personally, it takes about 3 times as much work to actually close a sale than it did last year. I only had 1 sale last year fall through. This year, I literally takes me about 3 under contracts to get to the home that people are comfortable with. They feel like it's a good deal or they can afford it simply.
I hear you, and I agree with everything you just said, because declining affordability is the number one problem that we're facing. Buyers are getting pushed out of the market or buying, or when they find the right one that comes on the market, they have to give an arm and a leg to get it. And then they realize that it's a lot more work, contractor work, and things that are wrong with the house than they wanted to deal with. And they back out because they're like, I don't want to pay top price, or $20,000 more than my friend paid for a home, 2 months ago, because they're comparing everything to just get into this market. So they wait and sit, and then they bid, and they're running around with their heads cut off basically, because it's a really, really challenging market. So if you're one of those buyers, what's the solution?
You're in a catch-22 because you could wait for the chance of hit the hope that prices ease. And it's funny, even looking at this report, I was just laughing because the last sentence of this first summary paragraph talking about nationwide, it says declining affordability has had a significant impact on home buyers, many of whom have been priced out of the market and are choosing to wait for sales price to ease before resuming their home search. And I hate that advice. I hate that approach because
Yeah.
there's no signs of it slowing down. Maybe in high cost, high tax states, like if you are in a New York or a California, and we're seeing this mass exodus of people going to the Southeast primarily, um, then yeah, that might make sense if you're staying there, right? But if you're coming here, you have to understand that this doesn't look to slow down. Okay, let's say that we do see like a slowing down in the sales price increase. We've raised 20% year over year. Okay, so it's going to go 10% next year. Like you're still going to be paying an extra 50K on a $500,000 home if you wait. So I think my best advice would be tough it out. I know it sucks. I know it doesn't seem like there's a way out, but if you think there's problems now, it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. We can't keep up with building. We can't keep up with people are staying in their homes longer too. And I don't know if that's something we want to touch on, but the average life cycle of people staying in their homes has gone up about 3 years in the past 10 years. So they're staying in their homes about 10 years versus 7 years, about a decade ago. And with people staying in their homes more, there's less homes that are going to naturally hit the market.
Yeah.
So the longer you wait, I think the worse time you're going to have. And I would just, rip the Band-Aid off. It sucks, but you might look like a genius. You will likely look like a genius in a year when you're like, man, I was paying so much in the present. And then a year from now, you'll be like, look at this. Haha, that same home I paid, 25K over asking for is now worth 50K more than I even paid for it. Sweet. I just made so much equity and I have a home and I secured a low interest rate. So that's that. I think that would be my advice to buyers. I know it's hard if you don't have the money on hand to get creative with solutions, but work with a trusted real estate advisor who knows how to make your offer just stand out that much more, because it will make the difference.
Yeah. Or has off-market listings where you can be prioritized and get in there first and have an agent that has relationships with other top agents in the marketplace, because we know how it all goes, right? Like if you have a great relationship with the listing agent, chances are they're going to cherry pick your offer or want to work with you, or, coach their sellers. Hey, I've worked with this person before. They're fantastic. It'll be a smooth transaction, which is what the seller wants. But on your point of people staying in their home longer, not only is that the case, but we have institutional buyers coming in and purchasing properties to turn them into rentals, to flip them. And they're taking up the inventory that could be going to retail customers and turning them into a profit center for themselves. And this has been going on since 2014, 2013. And most people don't realize these large companies were buying 40, 50 homes per month in the average price point and then turning them into rentals. These are homes that might have turned over once or twice for actual people who are relocating here. So we have a supply problem. And then with COVID, we have this population influx from the high cost, high tax states, very wealthy people selling their homes in high cost areas, coming here and gobbling up as much as possible. And then thirdly, there's a lot of people out there. And I just got back from the Bigger Pockets conference. And one of the big conversations was lock up as much cheap debt, long-term debt as possible, and have inflation erode away that debt over time with an asset that marks to market with inflation, which is a rental property, a single family property, multifamily property. Now, here's the thing. Will there be a crash in residential real estate? And the answer is no. The lending standards are so tough. To get a freaking home, you have to jump through a thousand different hoops. Like they've got that on lockdown. A lot of people have a ton of equity locked up in their property and they're not even tapping into it to pull it out necessarily. Like some are, but most aren't. And then the third part is where there's a bubble or potential for a bubble is actually on the commercial side. So maybe 2008 was the bubble for residential. And then what's happening now is the cap rates on commercial, like multifamily, some of these strip centers, storage assets like this, they're trading for 3 to 4 cap rates. And they still think that the rates are going to continue to go down. So what's really interesting is I think that we might see more trouble in the commercial space rather than, in the residential space here over the next few years, especially if interest rates continue to move up, which the Fed has already said it is estimated to do in 2023. And as we know, when interest rates go up, real estate prices go down. And what's really saturated right now is definitely the commercial space where people can get the biggest loans. Some people are saying, I'm still going to buy in the commercial space at these crazy prices because I can lock my rate in for 15 to 20 years. But for most people, that's not the case. They're only locking it in for 5 to 7. If you're buying retail price and commercial at 5 to 7 year term, and you're gonna, whatever the rate is at that new time, when you refinance out or decide to sell, that could be a huge issue for you. But in the residential market, I totally see the supply, that the buyers are quality. The supply is not there. They're not catching up fast enough, especially in a state like Florida.
Yeah, no, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I do think that commercial is definitely something to look at as far as a quote unquote bubble where, we are going to have issues. A lot of that also boils down to the fact that COVID kind of accelerated that. I mean, a lot of these storefronts aren't necessary anymore when you have the average American shopping online, 50 at an increased rate of 50%. E-commerce has exploded, not like it already wasn't a pressing factor for them, but COVID really accelerated that. So you have a lot of storefronts that, unless, I would say like the warehouse business and stuff, the storage facilities, logistics, all that good stuff, those are going to be just fine. But it is those average storefronts, those strip malls, those unless it's restaurants, and even restaurants are struggling because COVID really impacted their labor force.
Yeah.
That is a whole different beast, and commercial is definitely where I would say, if you're looking for bubbles or you're looking for some sort of opportunities or something, that's where you can get creative. But you're right. In residential, there is no signs of a bubble happening. To your point, institutional investors are very much a thing. I read an article the other day that said 25% of homes owned in Jacksonville are owned by investors.
Ooh,
So
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So 25% of people or homes in total in Jacksonville are owned by investors. You're now talking about a fourth of the overall supply that you will likely never see hit the market. And if they do hit the market, they're going to be savvy about it. They're investors. They want to make cash off of it. So there's no way you can appeal to the emotional side. And it's just getting worse because we do have those iBuyers coming in, right? We have Zillow offers. I mean, just in the past couple of months, I've seen more Zillow offer billboards pop up in exponential form, right? They're taking over the billboard space for sure. You do have other iBuyers like OfferPad and I guess Open Door, but they are still more of a kind of a commercial or a brokerage in a sense, right? They just make it a little, I guess, seamless in quote unquote. So yeah, I mean, you do have all these investors, and of course you have the investors from the high cost, high tax states. You have these equity firms, and I work with them, right? I mean, I have people hit me up all the time. Investors are by far, I get about 5 messages a day from people who are like, hey, I'm looking for deals under 200K. And I'm like, well, you and everybody else, but but they are coming hard for the Southeast. And, if you think it's hard now, they're just going to keep coming for it. So
yeah. What's interesting about the investor conversation is when I saw that statistic, 25%, I was, I actually thought to myself, like, it should be way more than that. Because if you actually look at the historic, like home ownership rate for Americans, it's like at 68%. So it's at an all-time high. So that would mean 32% of properties are owned by investors or their second homes or something like that, depending on how the data is cut. Well, 25% is actually not that much. But what's different now, though, is it's becoming institutionalized by, America Homes for Rent, Progress Homes, Invitation Homes, and they're buying like loads of properties in these specific locations, and they're not coming back on the market. And we have a supply problem on top of that, and they're still buying in many cases. So, when I ran this study, when I looked at the numbers more closely, only 2% of homes in America are owned by these institutional, really, really super large organizations. And that's not a lot. And it's not enough to move a market right now. But one can see, just like you saw that, viral Instagram reel post out there, where they're making fun of like, what are the things that these companies are going to be able to do in the future where they can manipulate a neighborhood's prices down the line. we're not there yet. We're not even close to being there, but it is an interesting, everyone can kind of see the writing on the wall. It's like, is it really good for us to provide liquidity through these large companies, have consumers pay a price, and then not have control of their neighborhood prices of their homes?
Yeah. I know which
It can
post you're
go, it
talking
can go
about.
for the good or it can go for the bad, and they can control the entire game because they have all the data, and a homeowner is just a homeowner.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, you're right, because if they do come into a neighborhood and they actually farm the neighborhood by buying up all the properties. Yeah, I know what post you're talking about. The guy was making fun of it, but it is an actual thing, right? Where they come in, they buy 10 properties, across the board for like 300,000. Well, they want to increase the price of this property. They have cash. So what do? Well, they'll buy that 11th property for 330,000. And you're like, well, why on earth would they do that? They just bought all these for 300,000. Well, it makes sense. Now they just increased the property, appraised value and all that good stuff. It gave it another comp. And so they want to turn around and sell those $300,000 homes for 330 now, or just increase their overall book value. Then they just did that in one fell swoop. All they had to do was pay 30K extra, and they just increased their profit by 300,000. So congrats. And that's just one way of making it work for them. Now, if they really wanted to come in and destroy a neighborhood, which they can do down the line, depending on the market shift, is they can do that same thing. And let's say they want to continue to add to their portfolio, but they want to do so at a cheaper scale. Well, they'll come in and they'll find the person who will sell for 250,000. Well, now the rest of the homes, they just got their value slashed. You want to try to sell it with a traditional realtor? Good luck. We just bought a house for 250. That adds to the recent comps. And guess what? That just cut your home value, not by 50K, right? Because they still did buy the other 300,000, but it did just cut your value down by probably about $10,000. And they can do that. They can keep manipulating the market like that on a local level if you let them. So I do highly suggest that you think about the repercussions if you are a seller of, what it does to the local economy, because like you said, they might not have the power right now, but if you continue to provide them this power, not only that, but you're kind of hurting yourself, because they can increase the prices on you. So if you want to move somewhere, if you sell your home, you have to move somewhere, you have to buy somewhere. They could be controlling that market too. So it is definitely a future alarm that we have to sound now. They don't have that kind of power now, but if they start coming into neighborhoods like that and they control a neighborhood, if you want to get into that neighborhood, you're playing by their rules, not ours.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens over the next 2.5 years, right? Because all of this is fueled by the Federal Reserve keeping rates artificially low. They're still buying mortgage-backed securities and treasuries. Everything is just inflated and possible because of these low interest rates. So their holding costs are next to nothing. And so if you're like a seller thinking about selling to one of these iBuyer companies, it's like, number one, you already know you're losing money, because the only reason that they're buying it is to flip it and turn it into to sell it to somebody else. So like they have to make their spread. Right now, their spread's $19,000 according to their own reporting. So like on average, you're losing $20,000 for something that is a perceived more convenience. It's not actually more convenient. Most homeowners would prefer to keep the equity, but the problem is that they get to the table first and they say, hey, here's the best thing. Here's what you're going to get with me and someone else. And they're only showing one side of the story versus going out to the marketplace and interviewing 1, 2, 3 different real estate agents, finding the one that's best by asking them questions. So really, like these companies are betting on the seller being lazy and not doing their research, and they're doing information arbitrage. Like they have all the data, the seller doesn't have any data except for the data that they're giving them, and you're negotiating against Wall Street. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out over the next few years, as the market hopefully gets some breathing room and prices don't go up as much as fast, because that's where a lot of their profit is coming from, is just simply from home price appreciation. And if that slows down, I think it'll be a different conversation, where it's like you can take the cash offer, but it'll be like $30,000 less than you go on the market. And like that's going to be the actual statistic here.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. They are one, lazy is, yeah, I mean, that's pretty accurate. It is just convenience. A lot of people just want the convenience these
But it's
days,
not
right?
more convenient, man. They still have to
No,
do repairs. They still do a walkthrough. They still renegotiate. You still have to have somebody in your house. You know, it's the same exact process. It is not more convenient. And it's funny to me because I've even put offer, you know, I've submitted my homes to these things and they're coming in $80,000 under, but they're showing data that makes it look like here's the last comps from 8 months ago, you know?
yeah,
And
yeah.
you got to price in this market where everything's moving forward. You got to price ahead of the market, not what happened 8 months ago. 8 months ago, properties were 20% less. So
Right.
it's just, it's unfortunate. And the sellers are, you know, they're not paying attention. This isn't what they do all day. So they're taking advantage of sellers who are uneducated on the process and on the market. And it's working for
Yeah.
2% of sellers. Like they are picking up share. And then when you turn around and they put it on the market, it is such a horrible experience
Oh
for
my
the
gosh. It
consumer.
is so bad.
You have to fill out a form online. You can't call anybody. Responses you'll get back in 5 days. I mean, it's literally a call center chop shop of people that literally don't get paid enough to care and are not going to do the right thing by the consumer or the community. And it's just, it'll be really interesting. I'm excited to see how this plays out because I think that the unique circumstances of the market has allowed for this to happen. And they're raising money more than ever right now to continue to purchase because rates are low. But if things start to change over the next 2 years, that'll really damper their efforts, I think.
You think they're going to be caught holding the bag?
I don't think so because they liquidate, right? So
Yeah.
like, you know, I remember when the stock market went down, I think it was like the end of 2019, it dropped like 8% in December and the iBuyers they backed out of every single offer. So by the way, it's not a sure thing. This has happened twice now where they back out. And then and then they sold everything. They liquidated everything immediately because remember, they have the data. They bought Showing Time. They just closed it, you know, last week. They bought it for $500 million. They can see every showing on every property. They have the consumer data from their websites. They can see where every buyer is searching, what price range they're searching. So they can see when things are slowing down before anybody else. They can see when things are speeding up before anybody else. And they're making moves through information arbitrage ahead of the consumer, ahead of the agent, ahead of everybody. And they can manipulate things before they happen. And that's when things, you know, when the conversation gets really interesting.
Yeah. No, and that's absolutely right. They made some really good key acquisitions. I mean, if I was in their position, they've done good things on, you know, on their front, on the Wall Street, increasing their value. And I think you really, you've honed in on the right term. It's information arbitrage, right? And that's one of the biggest things because it's so easy to kind of see your home value. Although a lot of people aren't, they're going off the same company that is making them the offer off of their, you know, estimate, their online valuation model. Who they're like, yeah, we're the leading source of information, but really it's their information and they're making the offer. So why would you trust somebody who is kind of making you the offer and say, hey, just trust me. Look, I'm the leading expert on information. When in reality, your home is worth 20,000 more, right? Like, why would you trust that?
It's a big lie, and it has
Yep.
to be. You can prove it because they're saying your home's worth this. I'll give you this cash. And oh, by the way, 2 weeks after I close on it, I'm listing it for $40,000 more.
Yep.
Like the seller sees that and they're like, did we just make a big mistake? Like it is the
Yes.
big lie. They're saying, here's the data says this price, and they go out to the marketplace and sell it for that price.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I get it. And I want to correct myself too. When I say convenience, I was trying to throw up air quotes. It's perceived convenience, right? So it's
Yeah.
yeah. So it's the fact that like, oh, well, all I have to do is fill out this form, but you are still going through the nitpickiness of, and if you think the opposite, like a normal regular mom and pop buyer, retail buyer is picky, oh, you got another thing coming too. When an institution wants what they want, and they have you basically by the legality of it, they use their own contracts, right? They use their own inspectors. I mean, they can do what they bend it to their will. They have information, they have the vendors. You are giving them all the leverage and power when it comes to selling your home. And that is not good. You don't, you should have, we are in the strongest sellers market we've ever seen. Why are you giving up not only so much like leverage, but you're just giving up so much leverage, right? You should have all the leverage as a seller, and you're giving it all up when you decide to go with this perceived convenience.
Yeah. And it's the same exact thing when you hire a crappy real estate agent. So I'll tell you this, me and Brittany just got a home under contract last night. And
oh, that's exciting.
And we got it under contract because the listing agent who sells a lot of properties did not market the property. The photos sucked. And we knew it. We were like, these photos suck. Like, we're going to go check out this home. We've been looking for a while. And the last comp sold for $60,000 more than what we purchased it for, because they didn't look at the comps when they priced the home. And they didn't wait until they got multiple offers. They just said, I got one offer, their deadline's by 6, get your offer in by 6. We made the offer at 6. They accepted our offer because it was better than the other offer, and it was done.
Yep.
And that seller now, because they hired an agent that isn't using tactics that work for this market, they're like acting like they're in a regular market, is now they lost 60 grand. It's good for us. Yeah. But that's like, you're looking for information arbitrage. And again, it's like not just like between the seller and the iBuyer. Now it's between the seller and your agent. Like, your agent isn't in the game and knows what's going on a day-to-day basis. Like Bryson said, like every single day, looking at the market, look at where things are at. If it's moving forward, if it's moving backwards, which areas are hot, which areas are not, where you need to price things at, how you need to market it, how long do you wait to get your multiple offers in, and then, figure out with the seller which one you're going to take. Like, all of those things are so critically important and can add up to tens of thousands of dollars. And if you hire the wrong one, it's a big mistake. So like, the best thing you can do is interview the agent that you're working with. Don't just go with friends and family in this market. This isn't just, hey, I'm going to hire my buddy and pray that they sell it in the next 90 days. I mean, that could be the largest financial mistake of your life, because your real estate is usually your largest financial asset.
Yep, absolutely. No, and I encourage, like, if I'm going in for the listing appointment, right, or somebody is interested in listing and I hear word of it, I'm like, hey, I'd love to talk to you about selling your home. And I'll go through my whole 5-minute kind of elevator pitch tops, right? I don't spend any more than 5 minutes trying to sell myself, because that's when I go into the listing appointment. But I encourage them to interview people. I was like, I want you to know what is currently out on the market. I want you to know just the level of service I provide. Like, you will not appreciate, I want them to appreciate my service, because I know myself, and I know a lot of other colleagues of mine, because I try to keep a tight knit circle of realtors who actually care, real estate advisors who actually care. And if I don't know them, that's not a good sign, right? There's a lot of people where I'm like, I don't know this agent, and turns out they don't do a great service.
So time out, pause there, because we are coming out with an episode that talks about the different levels of production of real estate agents. And the data shows that we pulled from broker metrics and compared with the NEFAR data is that 70% of real estate agents live below the poverty level income. 70%. And then to get to the top, 1 to 2%, you got to be producing more than like 16 million or somewhere around there as a top producer. But you at least want an agent that is selling 1 or 2 a month. I mean, at least, because that'll give them an indicator, like they're in the market, they're doing business, they know where things are at. But when we really, really drill down and look at it, about 85% agents aren't even making enough money to be in this business. So it's your job as the consumer to figure out, is this agent that I'm hiring part of that 15% that really gives a crap, that cares about the consumer, does enough volume to actually know what they're doing? And that's a lot, because again, this data is not shared. It's taboo information, especially from a brokerage, to share with anybody about profitability of agents, to share like how they get paid, how to find the best ones, because that's taboo. The money conversation here is really a big one. But I mean, if they can't even manage their own financials, how are they going to manage your largest financial asset? And it's like brutal to say, but it's a partly, it's our job to educate the consumer on the information out there and how to find the best people so they can have the best experience.
Yeah, why you took literally the tagline right out of my mouth is if they can't manage their own financials, why would you let them manage your largest financial asset or the transaction of it? And I think that really kind of ties back into our institutional, all these iBuyers and stuff coming into the market. They were allowed to come into this market because of these unqualified professionals who are selling these homes.
Mhm.
And I mean, they're trying to justify taking 3%, 6% total because they do have to pay the buyer's agent too. They're trying to justify that because they don't hire a professional photographer. They're going to use their iPhone to go around and take pictures. Like, you did not take a photography course. They're not getting any video. They're not getting the word out. They don't know how to use social media, which is 99% of buyers these days find their home online. Like, they're going to find it somehow. So if you're not using every single avenue to get your home on the internet, every single channel, every distribution channel you can possibly think of. It's not just MLS and Zillow. People are very social people. They're going to share any listing they see with their friends or families who are trying to move down here. If you do not exercise every single channel that you can possibly find and get them to share the word, then you are leaving money on the table. I mean, you are. And that is why these iBuyers are able to come in, because they honestly are probably doing as good of a job as the unqualified agent. So that's why in the consumer's eyes, they're like, why would I pay a commission if I could just sell it to this iBuyer for a decent price? Because these unqualified agents are running rampant. People are hiring, friends and family without interviewing others or at least questioning tactics, which I get it. Loyalty is definitely a human emotion, for sure. I'm helping my aunt and uncle buy right now too, but
Yeah.
it's a thing. I trust family too, but you have to question because I love my family, but if I were leaving 20 grand on the table, I would be questioning that. I would say, what are you doing to make sure I get that 20 grand, because I'm getting you the business? So yeah, it is really sad to see that people are letting others who can't manage their own finances handle their largest financial asset.
Yeah, it's challenging. So there are interview questions that if you're listening to this, if you're a seller, you want to ask them, how many homes have you sold in the last 12 months? Like, not your team, how many have you sold in the last 12 months? How many reviews, like, where can I see 5-star reviews from other sellers? Can I get references from other sellers? What's your sale to list price ratio? So that's like determines if they're pricing the home correctly. How many days on market are you versus the marketplace? Like, these are questions that, of course, like, no seller is really asking, but they need to see this checklist and ask. And then, how many years of experience do you have is a good question, but it doesn't tell everything. It's more of like, how many have you sold in today's market or in the last year or so? Because the last year and a half have been completely different from the prior year and a half. So I know agents out there that have been in business 2 years that are way better and 10 times more experienced than the agents that have been around for 20 years. So longevity in the business is not necessarily an indicator of, experience, because the market's kind of, always changing. It's like talking to a stock trader or wealth manager that performed, services back in the 80s versus somebody that's performing services today. It's like there's a huge difference in education in what to invest in and how the marketplace has changed. So let's do this, Bryson. Let's go through some of the data for September 2021. The
Absolutely.
new listings that came on. New listings, there have been a lot more new listings this entire year. It's up 7.4% for the year. We're at 3,633 homes on the market, which is honestly pretty good. I think that we're getting more listings. The pending sales are down 5.1%. The closed sales are down 12.5%. So here's the thing, we kind of see this happen every single year after school starts in August. It goes up through busy season. February, people get their tax refunds. They use that for their down payment on their property. It goes up, all the way up until August. People are buying to get in the right school district. And then it goes down about 40% in volume, in units. And then it pops back up in December because everyone's trying to close for tax purposes before the end of the year. And then it slowly dips back up and goes into busy season. So to me, looking at this, Bryson, I want your opinion too. Like, that's not unusual. It just happens to be that, like, last year was crazy unusual because we didn't experience the seasonality last year.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. So traditionally speaking, the busy season for us is April to about September. Beginning of September is when things really start to fall off because school does start. It's busy season because that's when, April is, generally speaking, that's like spring break time. It's when a lot of people have to start thinking about securing a home, and they'll move in May or something like that. And then, families do drive a large part of our Jacksonville, Northeast Florida real estate, because schools are a huge driving factor for us in Northeast Florida. I mean, St. Johns County is one of the top school districts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And nobody ever talks about Clay or Nassau County even, but they're phenomenal schools too. And a lot of people are starting to realize, I mean, Clay, I was looking at rankings, and out of 60 school districts or something, Clay was ranked number 4. And everybody always talks about St. John's, but Clay is definitely, I talk about that on an upcoming video too. So if you guys want to visit my channel, I'd talk about school districts and how they rank. But yeah, so it's getting back to our conversation. You're right. Last year was a complete, COVID just threw a wrench in everything, right? It was a weird business cycle because things didn't really stop. People were looking for their new sanctuary. They're looking for their new home because a lot of people are working from home, right? So we have a lot of remote workers now. People are looking at their home or the current living situation and say, well, look, if this is the new norm, I want to improve my situation. I'm going to look for a new home. We also have the largest generation of home buyers coming on the market right now. Millennials are coming in droves, and they are desperate for homes. So that all culminated into last year's weird wonky cycle, but we're starting to see things return to a little bit of normalcy as things start to open back up and whatnot, where September starts slowing down. You do see, though, if you're looking at the year to date pending sales and closed sales, that we still are up 10.9 and 12.9% respectively for pending and closed sales year over year. So that is, take that with a grain of salt. We're just starting to see a little bit of normalcy return to the market, where we do see a little bit more business cycles. From September to December, we tend to see a little bit of slowdown, a little bit of reprieve, and a little bit of breathing. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Would expect things to start picking back up in December. I already know that the next 2 months for me, look, they are on the slower scale, especially when you compare it to the beginning of the year. But in December, I already have probably about 8 families that I will be working with actively coming down here, and they're like, hey, I want to get a head start on things, because I know that once February comes around, and like you said, we are starting to see that cycle move up a little bit, where traditionally it was April, but we are starting to see it move up because, one, millennials don't have kids, they have dogs right now. And I saw like articles that are, millennials aren't buying homes for their kids, they're buying it for their dogs. They want a backyard and whatnot. But that's true. They don't have to worry about the school cycle. They are looking to get a head start in the market. And February tends to be when we're starting to see this date creep up. So if you want to get prepared for the home buying process, and you want to start 2022 on a jump start in December, maybe even start November, even start getting your ducks in a row and really hit the ground running by the end of the year, because we're going to start seeing some supply creep back on the market, like John said.
Yeah, this is the best time of year to buy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's more inventory hitting. There's less buyer demand. Historically, that has been the case from seasonality. I think we're starting to experience and go back, like you said, to some sense of normalcy. So the next statistic looking at is the average home price versus last year is up 19.7%. It was a $256,000 house last year, is now trading at about 307, which, is really hard to wrap your mind around. So anyone who's purchased property over the last 5 years right now looks like an absolute genius. Is phenomenal. And again, it's because the low interest rates are spurring demand. We're having population growth. Jacksonville is a very unique city. We've got a huge port for shipping in the Navy. We've got Mayo Clinic. We've got great climate. We have no state income tax. I mean, this city is ripe to continue moving forward. And it's also still priced less than Tampa and Orlando, and is a beach town. So I think this market is still primed and ready to go to continue moving forward, despite what happens with the economy in whole. And we're also starting to get some tech companies relocate here. We're redeveloping downtown. Shad Khan's putting money down there. And the wealthy people who have moved here from these high cost, high tax areas are sprinkling their wealth over Jacksonville in Northeast Florida, and they're not leaving. These are people who came here to retire, and they're going to stay in this home until they die, and that's when the home will sell. I really don't think that, or they're moving into a nursing home. So I think people are going to be moving here long-term, staying here. And I think that, supply is going to continue to be an issue. The good news is there are places to still build. There's still a lot of buildable land. It needs to be developed, but because of the labor shortage and how far behind they are already, it could take 2 to 3 years to just catch up to get it to a normalized market. So I really expect, even if rates move or whatnot, that I'm not talking about commercial, I'm talking about residential. I think the residential market is still primed, and this is the best market ever to be a builder, a contractor, a real estate agent, all of it, because we just have so much motivation to be here. Or even a small business owner, there's so much motivation to be here. The only problem is lack of labor shortage for serving the type of people who are moving here. But I definitely see prices maybe not continue to go up at like 20% in 1 year. Maybe we get more normalized 6, 7, 8%, but I definitely don't see prices going backwards.
No, and they won't. They will continue to beat out inflation. Whatever the inflation percentage is, where I think on average we look to do 3.5% or something inflation. We're going to be way over that. Over the next, if the Fed keeps doing what they're doing, if the Treasury keeps buying back, if they keep providing money to the American people and we keep buying back mortgage-backed securities, you're going to see that. So yes, appreciation will normalize at some point, but it isn't going to turn down, right? It's just going to stabilize a little bit, if anything. And that's if anything. I still see homes going to appreciate at least 10%, maybe over the next 2 years. But that's less than 20%. So that's good news, I guess. And I think you had a few good points. So one thing I tell a lot of buyers is, you're looking at a market that nobody really wants to look at fixer-uppers because there is a lack of labor, right? It's so hard to find contractors. The prices of inputs are ridiculously high. So building materials, any sort of upgrades you want to make to the home, they're a lot more expensive now than they were, before pre-COVID. And that's just a function of the labor shortage we had. We took so many months off the economy because people were, we had stay-at-home orders, right? So, I mean, we're just catching up with production slowly but surely. So a lot of people are looking for homes that are already done. They are turnkey as possible, and they are paying a premium on them. You should expect that too. If you're looking, and I can tell you 9 out of my 10 buyers that I talk to on a daily basis, I have Zoom calls with people every single day from out of market. They want something that is turnkey. They want something that is move-in ready. They don't want to deal with the hassle of trying to find contractors because it's impossible right now. They are so backed up. Especially here in Florida, a good example is like everybody wants a pool right now.
Yeah.
Because it is, not only is it super expensive to build a pool, but you are on a wait list of up to a year. So I know some really good pool contractors that are over a year booked out. So when I just want to set expectations for people too. Not only are we seeing the sales price increase, but when you're looking at turnkey properties, expect that also to be a little bit higher than the median increase. So you're going to see, if the average increase in appreciation is about 15%, expect those homes to be somewhere around 17% at least, right? You're going to have that premium on them. So until we start seeing building supplies and labor come back to the market, then they expect that to continue. And I know a lot of people want those turnkey properties. So
I do. The house that we've been on, it needs a new bathroom. And I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be like a 5 or 6 month project if I can find the right person to do it. And like, what's funny is like, I've sold hundreds of homes. The broker just sold thousands of homes. We have hundreds of agents, and we still can't find like the best talent that we have to offer in the area because they're all booked up. The talent people get, just like a real estate agent, like you want to work with somebody who's really busy because they're the best. That's why they're really busy. The people that are really slow right now, it says something like, why are they slow in the hottest market ever? And so like, I would be like really concerned and really due diligence on your contractors that are coming out. One more conversation that I want to have before you hop off here, which is my most important conversation, is affordability.
Yeah, I knew it was coming.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
is at the same point that it was in 2007, 2008, on the affordability tracker. So what that means is for the median income of a household in the area, it's at what the affordability tracker is at 113. So what that means is that the median income for that household is only 13% higher than what the monthly payment would be for a median home in the area. That's really low. But here's the thing, and why it can keep going is because the people who are buying are not the people who've been renting here and couldn't buy. It's people relocating who have already had their wealth and are now bringing their wealth here and don't necessarily have to work. So the affordability factor for our area might not be as big of an issue as it is for other areas.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because it is a lot of non-local people who are buying, right? So investors, the remote workers are a huge portion. I help out a lot of people relocating to Jacksonville, and a lot of them are like, I work remotely. I was
Yep.
just looking for a beach town. I was looking for something that was affordable. I love the fact that you don't have state and local taxes. Why not move there? Like, do you know what 500,000 buys me in my hometown? It buys you a shack. Do you know what it buys me in Jacksonville? Like a nice 4-2
Yeah.
in a good area. Like, sweet, count me in. Let's go. It also, the problem I see too, and I feel so bad about it because there's nothing we can do, but it is pricing the people who currently live in Jacksonville out of Jacksonville, right? It's pushing them further north. So they're going up to Yulee, which is even in itself is going higher and higher.
Yeah.
It's pushing people over the border to St. Mary's over in Georgia, which also getting more expensive. It's pushing people to the southwest. They're going from Middleburg to Keystone Heights to maybe even closer to Gainesville even. It is wild to see the social impact it's having on migration patterns of local people, because it is pushing them further out where they can afford stuff.
It's really hard. Like if you're a waiter or you work at like a local restaurant or something like that, and you're getting paid $12, $14 an hour, plus maybe some tips, those people are not able to purchase. And here's what's happening. The rent keeps going up and up and up and up. The rent prices are absolutely insane, where it's like they want to buy, they need to save for the down payment, but their landlord keeps upping the rent amount by their extra income that they make. So they never save enough for a down payment, or they're using FHA or VA while everybody else is purchasing cash, and they're not able to be competitive in the marketplace. So it is really interesting. We're seeing these, workers just get pushed completely out of the market while these wealthy individuals move in, which I guess is what really happens to many markets. Now it's just happening to Jacksonville.
Yeah, I hate it too, because I know, it is a totally different conversation that I have with people I serve that are relocating, which is probably about 85% of my business, honestly. And then, 15% of the people I serve locally. And those 15%, they gawk at the prices. They're like, how is this,
Yep.
400,000, this should only be 300,000. I'm like, well, this is the current state of the market. And if you don't adapt right now, you're going to be left in the dust. You're going to be left without the home. So I would scurry to find something that you can afford. Maybe it isn't in Jacksonville right now. Maybe it is in one of the more cost-friendly suburbs of Jacksonville, and you buy it now, you let the home appreciate, and you take that equity, and then you're able to make a competitive offer somewhere else. You're able to afford to move back into Jacksonville. I don't know what that looks like to you, but that would be some advice I would have for people that are struggling here in Jacksonville. Just my 2 cents.
I agree. I think the key takeaway from this whole conversation is buy as soon as you can, lock in the lowest rates. And if that's the case, if you plan on staying here long term, if you want to be in Jacksonville, Northeast Florida long term, buy now, get into the market. It's going to be more expensive next year, either through interest rates or prices, or both, probably both. So I would not wait. And this is the perfect time of year to go out and do that, and find an agent like Bryson and just connect and, interview and sit down and do a buyer consultation and figure out where things are actually at, so we can move the ball forward here and get you in a home before the holidays. I think really that would be the best move. And I'm not just saying that, I'm doing that myself. So,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at the data just like Bryson, like every single day we're looking to see for indicators of anything slowing down, or like the market changing, and the population growth is just going to keep this place on fire. That's the number one thing, is the buyers determine the marketplace.
Yeah.
And they drive everything. And there's like 20 offers per house. I mean, there's a home that'll come on the market, even in a like $800, $900 million range, that'll have 4 or 5 offers within the first 8 hours of being on the market, sight unseen. And when you have that many buyers per home, like the prices will continue to move up. So Bryson, any final words before we hop off here?
Yeah, I guess my advice for buyers, and John really summarized what we were talking about, what to look for, and the actions to take. But I would, if you are looking to just track the market a little bit, track interest rates. That is going to be the number one factor of, if we are ever to return to a balanced market under current market conditions, interest rates are going to be the first thing that causes us to go back to a higher inventory, because there's going to be less buyers. Because if you thought affordability was bad now, it is going to be worse. Your purchasing power goes down 10% with every percent up in interest rate. It is a bad scaling issue. So if you are waiting for home prices to go down, you're out of luck, and it's only going to get worse with interest rates rising and increased demand. Buy now, because we do have a couple of months of winter time when things lie a little bit more dormant. We do have people that are looking to sell, but you're going to have the big part is you're going to have less competition on the market, because people are, staying put for schools and whatnot. And less competition means you will still have to make a competitive offer, but you will not have to make an outrageous offer right now, right? You won't have to waive a ton of your rights and leverage away on an average basis. If you're still trying to get over to the beach or, St. Johns County, those are still very competitive markets. But above all else, know that people like John and myself are open books on this stuff. We will give you all of our knowledge as long as you're willing to listen. This is my job. This is my profession. I give this information away for free. And whether you want to act on it and use me as your agent, that is up to you. But I love helping people out, and find somebody who is service oriented like that. Please. That is number one key advice I can give in this market. So I think that about wraps it up for me, John. I'm looking over everything. I guess now that I look at percent of original list price received on one of the stats, it's 99%. So real quick on the listing side, if you are interviewing agents, know that everybody looks like a genius right now, because it's so easy to sell a home. It's selling it properly, right? So I know my different takeaway is that my homes last 5 days on market, which is insanely fast. So if you want it sold fast, great. If you want to negotiate terms, you want to stay there longer, fine, I can help that out. I also sell my homes for 6.1% more than the average agent. My homes are selling at 105.
That's a good number, sir.
Yeah, it's 105.1%. Yeah, well, exactly. If I can cover the spread, that means more money in your pocket. So if your agent doesn't know these numbers, like if they can't spin them out top of head, do not hire that agent. If they have to go back through and calculate the numbers, they are not going to handle your transaction right. So please, I know all of my colleagues here at Momentum, we always talk about know your numbers. They know their numbers. And if you can't spit those numbers out just like that, do not hire them to sell your home, because everybody looks like a genius right now, but it takes that extra upper echelon to sell it right. So that's it for me, John. I'm done rambling. I hope your viewers enjoy this.
I just think like the two big mistakes, like here's what you want to avoid. Number one is not interviewing agents, or not interviewing enough agents to find the one that actually knows what the heck they're talking about. And then two, I'm going to wait for the market to crash and then I'm going to buy. I think those are like the two biggest mistakes that I see out there, is, just going with the first person they sit down with and not taking the interview process seriously and see what options are out there. So my encouragement, number one, get with Bryson. Bryson, where can they follow you?
You can follow me at Bryson Powers Realtor across most social platforms. It should be on Facebook, should be on Instagram. The best way to get in touch with me is on my YouTube channel. You can see all my content there. Just search Bryson Powers Realtor. You can search just about anything. Moving to Jacksonville real estate market. My video will pop up. And on top of that, you can reach me, Bryson at BrysonPowers.com. My number is 904-615-9007. Whatever you guys need, whatever messaging platform you want to use, I promise I will get back to you within 24 hours.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, most agents don't even answer their phone, but we won't get into that. But
that is, do you want us to be on for another hour? Because I'll talk about that.
Well, so
No.
if you're truly motivated, then buy now. I mean, it's like weird. I've never actually like said that or been so
Pushy about
forthright
it.
about it. Like push
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
when you see it and you're just like, this train's not stopping. Or it might slow down, but it's not stopping and going the other way. Like that's just not even a possibility with how much money is coming. Like it's just, I keep thinking about all the businesses. I came here 7 years ago. This is a totally different marketplace than it was 7 years ago. And I don't see it stopping. I think more and more and more companies are going to be attracted here. I think the area is getting cooler. There's so many options. People are going to want to be here more than ever. So it's weird. I've never been pushy, but now I'm just like, forget it. Like buy everything that you can. If it's residential and not like too crazy of a price point. And it's like, if you're under 500,000 in this market, residential, I don't like the risk is like very, very low. And you don't want to be renting because the rents are going crazy. You have no control. So it's all about opportunity cost. But anyway, with that, thank you for listening today on Brooks on Business podcast. Bryson, appreciate your time, sir.
Of course. Always happy to do it, my friend.
All right. Talk soon.